Welcome to the Journey Podcast, the podcast that's all about you. The podcast that interviews interesting guests and listens to their journeys of where they've been, where they are now, and where they are going. Well, welcome everybody. Today I am excited about our guest, Tom Schmidt. He is from Barbco, joining us today in the Journey podcast. And I tell you what, Tom has had an incredible journey, and I'm very fortunate to know Tom. And we're very fortunate to have Tom here with his experience and knowledge, not only just in the region that we're in Stark County, but just nationally, the things that Tom has done and just all of his experiences. Just a great person to have on here. Currently, Tom is serving as the Vice President of Business Development for Barbco Incorporated in East Canton, Ohio. And he has had many years of marketing leadership, sales leadership, and brings just a wealth of knowledge and information to that role. Just being a longtime Canton, Ohio resident and somebody who has just done so many incredible things for the community. And one of the really neat things that you have, Tom, is you actually have a special day, Tom Schmidt Day, for you in Massillon, Ohio, which I think is really cool. But this isn't about me. This is about Tom. So let's hear from you, Tom. Thanks for being here today, and tell us how you're doing today.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm doing super fantastic. And
that's right.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you so very much for reaching out. And I appreciate this opportunity to share maybe some pearls of wisdom or maybe things not to do with your audience. Okay, I think I'm probably the only one that celebrates Tom Schmidt Day, which is May 10th in Massillon, Ohio. Mayor Kathy she is super fantastic. We're so lucky to have her as a mayor and a leader in Stark County. She did a mayoral proclamation of making May 10th in 2016 Tom Schmidt Day in Massillon, although I think I'm the only one who celebrates it annually. I keep kidding my friends. Maybe we should have a parade next year.
That would be a lot of fun. I'll come to that parade. So I'll take any excuse I can to get outside. So I'll do it. So yeah, that'd be great. So tell us a little bit about the business you're in right now, Tom. What you guys do. I think your stuff is really neat. You have some great stuff online, and I've learned so much about what you do just from your social media.
Well, thank you. You're so kind. We have a really great story to tell here at Barbco. We're family owned. We're a second generation. In our third generation, we're grooming in the business. And we've been around since 1989. And we make what's called auger boring machines. These are machines that drill holes anywhere from 8 inches up to 84 inches in diameter, horizontally, say underneath a roadbed. That way you don't have to impede the flow of traffic on the surface while you're running this hole underneath the ground using augers, think of them as 10-foot long giant drill bits going through the earth to run, whether it's water lines, sewer lines, gas lines, oil lines, except even just making man tunnels. And that's what our equipment does.
Wow.
And I'm on the path for world domination of the capital equipment market for the trenchless excavation and underground manufacturing industries. So it's about world domination. That's what gets me up every morning. And I love getting calls and inquiries from all over the globe. And we do ship all over the globe, in addition to a huge footprint in North America as well.
That's awesome. You've got some really neat videos that our audience should check out on your social media and the different parts of the world where your machines are. Tom, you've done a lot of things. I didn't meet you at Barbco. You were with an insurance company over in Canton, Ohio, Alt Care, when I first met you a couple of years ago. So how did you end up in the role you are now? And maybe just talk a little bit about your past and your journey to where you are now.
Sure. Listen, I've been in, maybe if you don't mind, Nate, I'll kind of start chronologically.
Sure.
Right out of high school, I went to Louisville High School, go Leopards, and had an opportunity to work summers at a factory called Boyle Midway in Canton, Ohio. And we made Santa Flush, which is a granular toilet bowl cleanser, Zud cleanser, it's kind of like Ajax on steroids. We also made Roach motels. You know, roaches check in, but they don't check out. And a couple other small products like a powdered woolite for sweaters. And all through college, I worked summers and Christmas breaks at the factory. And I went to graduate school for about a semester, and there came an opportunity to come back to the factory full-time in a quality control chemist role. So my first professional job was as a chemist. And so I was with Boyle Midway. Well, when you include the time right out of high school, I was with them about 12 years and just really got to enjoy manufacturing. And so literally my first day I was sweeping the floor. And when the plant ended up closing because we were not through any fault of our own, but we were bought by a larger organization and they ended up having to streamline our operation and they closed our plant. But I went from sweeping the floor to assistant plant manager in that 12-year period.
Wow.
And manufacturing is just a passion of mine. So I've worked in a number of different factories over the years. And actually I've visited 189 factories in my career. And to me, it's amazing to see American ingenuity, how we manufacture the goods that people use every day. And so let's see, my last job prior to coming to Barbco, I was at the Progressive Auto Group, and prior to that, I was at AltCare. And I took kind of a time out from my manufacturing career to get some sales and marketing, real life experience, because I knew I needed that to kind of round out my career and because I really wanted to be in a leadership position in a manufacturing company, which I'm in right now. And having that background really in sales and marketing really helped me out. And that's when I met you, when I was with AltCare. So that's in a nutshell.
In your career, were you always interested in marketing? It's something that I think that you do very well, better than a lot of people I've met. Was it something you were always interested in?
Actually, no. Let's go back to in 1999, I took a position with the Harrison Paint Company in Canton, Ohio. And my first year there was tumultuous. That's the kind word. And when I hired in at Harrison Paint, it was right after a company from New Jersey bought the Harrison Paint Company and did a strategic acquisition in reverse. They closed their New Jersey paint factory down, moved to Canton, and tried to put the two plants and the two organizations together. And in 1999, if you named it, it went wrong. And I took a couple days off of Christmas time around 1999. And I got that call that you do not want to get when it's your HR manager saying, you need to come to work. Okay, it's probably not for a Christmas bonus. I go to work and I'm escorted back to the executive offices, and I see three guys in suits and ties I've never seen before. And again, I'm in panic mode, and I'm given a list of our employees, and they say, Mr. Schmidt, you have 105 employees at Harrison Paint. You need to lay off 35 people.
Wow.
But don't worry, we've taken care, we have let the CEO, CFO, COO, and president, we've let them go. So we want you to run the company. We'll make you general manager, and vice president. But you run the company. We'll turn the company around because we're turnaround consultants. So that's a story about Harrison Paint. So that was December of 1999. In 2000, it went even worse. And it got to the point, and this is a long story. I'll keep it short for your listeners. We made it to Labor Day of 2000. There was 2 Harrison Paint employees. I'd laid them all off. And my job as of Labor Day was, from the bankers and the attorneys, was to close Harrison Paint by Thanksgiving.
Wow.
I said, okay. And they said, of course, we'll pay you through Thanksgiving. All right. I asked the attorney, I said, do you mind if I sell the company for you? I said, well, okay, but we're not going to pay anything. We're not going to pay any expenses. If you want to do that while your main job is to liquidate the assets, get the real estate up for sale, and get rid of all the hazardous waste. So in September of 2000, I made over 500 phone calls. I found 23 different interested parties. I put together my own pro formas, went to Kinko's, bound them all up, then went to FedEx. Back 20 years ago, FedEx and Kinko's were 2 separate companies. For your members of your audience who don't remember that. Long story short, I ended up finding the Lauber brothers. I spoke with Mark Lauber on September 22nd, about 2:30 in the afternoon, and 90 days straight, we talked every day and ended up getting the deal done. There was one interesting part of getting the deal done was mid-October, there was a mandatory bankruptcy hearing. And it looked like the attorneys were going to push for a Chapter 7 immediate liquidation. And during that bankruptcy hearing, the judge reached to a sheath or a ream of papers, if you will, of letters on the corner of his bench, picked them up and fanned them to the audience and the people in the courtroom. And he put them back down. He said, he tapped on them. He looked pointedly at the lawyers' benches, both for the creditors and for the company, and said, it seems like a lot of people want to see Harrison Paint saved. And the message was delivered, no Chapter 7 today, lawyers, work it out with the Lauber brothers. Now that stack of letters was part of a letter writing campaign that I started back in January of 2000 after meeting with Mayor Watkins and getting anyone I could think of in the town to write a letter, from the mayor, from the Chamber of Commerce, from everybody on the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce, the police department, the fire department, my customers, my vendors, other business leaders in town. We had over 500 letters that was written to the judge, and that bought us enough time. And so then the attorney started working with the Lauber brothers. And then Mr. Lauber, Pat Lauber, said, Tom, we've never seen paint made. I said, okay. Do you think you can get your workers in to show us how paint is made? I said, Pat, I laid them all off. I said, but Pat, I'll make a deal with you. My customer Crescent Bronze in Chicago desperately needs a special paint that we make for them. I have everything I need except for one raw material that I'm lacking. If you'll pay for the raw material, I'll get the guys and we'll make this batch. We can make it on a Saturday, only take about 4 or 5 hours. And we can then take care of the customer and you can see the paint made. So Pat said, okay, Tom, how much will it cost me? And I go, about $850. He goes, I'll do it. He said, but Tom, please make sure that I get the invoice the customer. You got it. And okay, sorry, one of my one of my employees needs me, but I'll get back to him. So every guy I called, I said, hey guys, can you come in on Saturday and make some paint? He said, Tom, why are we doing this? I go, well, I got a new owner who's interested in buying us, and we got to make the paint for Crescent Bronze. And to a man, everyone said, Tom, will you pay us? And I go, I can't pay you, but I'll bring in coffee and donuts, even the donuts with the sprinkles. And he said, every guy said, fine, we'll come in. And long story short, they came in, we made the paint, got the customer out of the way, out of the woods. The owners got to see how paint was made. And then a month later, when they bought the company, every man who came in on that Saturday is a Harrison Paint employee. And I'll tell you this, to this day, I think they're all still employed there 20 years later.
That's an awesome story, just prevail through adversity there. Thanks for sharing. I was hoping you'd share that story. So you shared that with me probably about 8-9 years ago. So that story, I remember that story. So what's one thing just in your career that you didn't expect to happen? Maybe that's the story. I don't know. Well, maybe there's probably a lot of twists and turns, I'm assuming.
Oh, it's been an eventful career. Well, this is a story I think I've told you before, and maybe many people in the audience have heard this. June 25th, 1987. Your boy Tom was working in the chemistry lab at Boyle Midway when the building exploded, and ran down the street on fire, used my hands to put out the fire, did the stop, drop, and roll. And that day, we lost my boss, Harry Rana. In fact, they actually never found his remains. 2 other people made it out of the inferno, and it was an inferno. Keith and Lisa and myself, we all went up to Akron Children's Hospital. Lisa passed away, God rest her soul, after 2 weeks. Keith survived 90 days, and I was in the hospital for about 5 weeks.
Wow.
So when people talk to me about I'm having a bad day at work, I think you have no idea what a bad day at work is.
It's funny, but it's not. So, all right. So we'll bring it back to Barbco a little bit.
Sure.
What's a common myth about underground boring, if I'm saying it correctly?
Oh my, that's a good question. I'll tell you what, it's a growing industry, and we're thinking that we call it trenchless excavation. So you don't break the surface of the ground, and the industry says about 30% of pipelines are put in underground, and we're seeing that that's going to grow by 2025 to about 50 to 60%.
Wow.
So that's it's definitely a growing industry, and let's face it, when you go to some of these newer developments, newer allotments, don't they look much more cleaner when you see all the utilities from your electric, everything, your cable underground?
Yeah.
And it keeps, when you think about these storms that we've had on our south coast, on the northeast coast, that these gale force winds, hurricanes, just knock all these power lines down, and you have a dangerous situation. When you have your power lines and your utilities underground, it not only looks more aesthetically pleasing, it's safer.
Right.
So it's a growing trend, and Barbco, I think we're positioned for world domination, brother. That's what it's about.
So what do you think is the most important lesson you've learned about, I'm going to try now, underground trenchless, how do I say it?
Excavation.
Trenchless excavation, correct.
Yes,
what's the most important lesson you've learned about that?
Well, I'll tell you what, being a new guy, I've been here 2 years, 10 months. It's a great industry. It's a great industry, a lot of great salt of the earth people, but there's a lot to learn. It's a very complicated industry. And so for me, being persistent to reach out to the experts in the industry and learn from them. And once you kind of break that ice as a new guy coming in or new person coming in, these people are glad to tell their story and glad to help educate you. So it's about being persistent and getting the education, because there's a lot of technology in this industry, and there's a lot of new things coming to the industry that Barbco, we definitely plan on being at the cutting edge of it.
So who has been the most important, maybe we call a mentor or coach or trainer in the trenchless excavation for you?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm lucky to have them as Barbco employees. One of our co-owners, Tony Barbera, I'm not allowed to say this, he's a legend in the industry because he's a very modest man, but he is a legend in the industry. And my other colleague, Scott Fisher, he's been in the industry for 30 plus years. He's literally traveled the world from Afghanistan to Russia, to Australia, to South Africa. He was just in Croatia and Serbia 2 years ago. And just having his expertise, and between the two of them from a technological standpoint and just being there in the bore with the men and the folks doing the excavation, I've learned so much from them.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, that's fantastic. Super fantastic, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So what's one lesson your job has taught you that you think everyone else should learn at some point in your life?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going back to a mentor of mine, Tim Dimhoff, who I know you know very well. Tim says it's simple. It's high tech and high touch. Okay. So use the tools that are available to you, whether it's on the technology on the internet or in your chosen industry. But the high touch part is you've got to have the people element. And Tim always says it comes down to meeting people, meeting people, meeting people. You could never know enough good people.
That's so true.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So what's one thing about your job there at Barbco that you do that almost nobody else agrees with you about?
The relentless marketing. This is something new for Barbco. To this day, my friend, since April of 2019, I've had Barbco published 505 times in different media outlets.
Wow.
In fact, last week we were in Crane's Cleveland Business, which, as you know, is the Wall Street Journal of Northeast Ohio, a great article. And today in the mail, I got a nice little blurb in the Massillon Chamber of Commerce newsletter.
That's awesome.
Just getting out there and relentlessly sending out press releases and getting to know, I'm the guy who reads all the trade journals. Okay. You can get such an education where, here's a little secret, my friend. When I started here, I seen all these magazines being thrown away. So I created an office recycling program. And then, so I don't have to dumpster dive for all these magazines. We collect them and we recycle them, and they get recycled into my office and I read them. And I got to know the editors and read a lot of great articles. I got to know the authors, and that really helped me learn the industry. I'm the one who reads the magazines, but I've learned a lot reading these magazines. And there's probably like 2-3 dozen trade magazines in my industry.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think just reading and understanding what other people are doing in the industry, because you're usually not the first person who's thought of it, but maybe you can do it a little bit better, a little bit different to make it even better. So you certainly have a lot on your plate. What would you say is the most or the best productivity hack that you've come up with for yourself?
Oh, I'll tell you what, having quiet time in the morning before the phone rings, you know, I use that time to write my press releases. I use that time to get organized, because once the phone starts ringing and once your colleagues start coming in, you know, every day's different. But I think just find quiet time and then just, you know, plan your work your plan. So
So
it's not earth shattering, my friend, but it does work for me.
no, it's great to hear that. So, you say you write the press releases, there's a lot that go into that. You guys have got some great messaging, and I'm going to assume that you're the genius behind the messaging for the brand. So what was
Yes,
your
sir.
what was your process in creating the messaging you use for marketing?
Actually, it's quite simple, my friend. We've got a great story at Barbco. I realized that when I was researching the company before I came to work here. And I thought, heck, nobody's telling the story. So we got a great story, just got to get out there and tell it. And do the things that we've been doing for 32 years, but just tell people that we're doing it. And so that's kind of the impetus of it, my friend. And also it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It's
that's awesome.
mhm.
Is it important to your clients that you're US based, or since you're international, do they see a better quality or interest because you're US based?
That's a good question. I do play up the Made in the USA, absolutely. But whether you're US based or not, having a quality product is, that cuts across the board internationally. You just got to have a product that when your customers are out in the middle of nowhere on a desolate hillside trying to drill through a mountaintop or something, they need equipment that they can count on that'll work, because they
Yeah.
can't go to their parts store to get a pieces part, because that equipment's got to work the first time every time.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Quality is everything. So, okay, a couple rapid fire questions, Tom.
Okay, I'm ready.
What other occupation, other than all of the ones that you've done so far, would you like to try still?
Oh my. Okay, I'd like to be a gourmet chef.
Oh, really? Okay. Do you like to cook?
I watch a lot of the Food Channel, but I do like to cook, but I'm no Bobby Flay.
Okay. Okay. You said you read magazines. I'm sure you read books. What are some 3 books you'd recommend to the audience, and why?
Oh, you know me well, my friend. To quote my dear friend, and I know you know him well, Craig Chamberlain. Craig always said, "Readers are leaders, and leaders are readers."
It's true.
I keep track of everything. Since my sophomore year in college, I've read 1,140 books.
Wow.
And if I had to pick out 3 books, the first one would be The Goal by Eli Goldratt. That is a book. It's a manufacturing novel. I've read it probably 25 times in my career. I've probably given away 100 copies of it. It's just is the go-to book for anyone in manufacturing. The second book I would recommend is The You in Business by Tim Demoff. He's a local guy. Sometimes just because someone's local, you don't realize that he's an international powerhouse, but Mr. Demoff is.
He is.
And the last book, I wish the heck I would have read this 20 years ago when it was recommended to me, is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And oh my God, that book is so appropriate to what's going on geopolitically today across the globe in the United States. It's a lengthy read, but it's a powerhouse.
Well, great. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay,
You
so somebody is starting a business today. What is the one word or words of wisdom you would give them?
Okay. Well, you have to, you gotta conceive, believe, and achieve. You have to conceive it, and you've got to believe it, then you can achieve it. So you got to have a plan, work your plan, plan your work. You have to be persistent. Okay, starting a business, as you know, young fella, is not a 8-hour a day job. No,
Right.
you've got to be, and I'll tell you what, you have to meet people, meet people, meet people. I've hit this theme before. And a thing a lot of people do starting out a business is they spend all day long on the computer doing busy work, when that's the stuff you do in the morning or at night. When you're in business prime time hours, that's when you got to be in front of your customer or your prospect or your vendor. You know, do your emails in the morning or do it at night, whatever works for you, but be in front of people when you can, when they're there, when they're at work.
Wow, that's awesome. Tom, I really appreciate you being a guest on the Journey podcast today. But what's one question you wish I would have asked today?
Gosh. Nate, you've done such a good job. I can't really think of anything.
I've asked all the questions that can be asked.
Sir.
Well, tell us where our listeners can find you online, your website, your social media, and remind them the company you're with.
Okay, I'm Tom Schmidt with Barbco. Our website is www.barbco.com. You can find us on LinkedIn. Actually, LinkedIn has probably our freshest content. Okay, it's more business. I keep up with our LinkedIn page. I'm posting daily and anything that's going on in my industry and my community. Our Barbco Facebook page, we have a little different spin on that, where we like to highlight some fun things that are going on at the plant, sharing things that our colleagues are doing, and just more, it's more of a lighter version. So between the website, the LinkedIn page, and the Facebook page, you can get a good idea what's going on. And we are starting to post some YouTube videos. In fact, I got a pretty recent video of our St. Baldrick's head shaving from last week. So between those different media, we do some work on Instagram, but I'm not a aficionado of Instagram. I don't really know how it works, but some of my colleagues post as Instagram, but I'll have to say, I don't know how that works, but they do.
Well, that's great. Go check out the Barbco, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Great content out there. I've learned so much about now I know, called the trenchless excavation business. I like YouTube because I like to see how things work. So go follow their pages today. Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate your time and just hearing your story today. It's definitely a value to me and our audience. You have a great day. Make it super fantastic, correct?
Oh,
yeah.
You're too kind, my friend. Thank you very much. And thank you so very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.